I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rosanna.
And on this podcast, we explore how to take life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursue a life worth living together. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 1 of the Relentless Pursuit podcast, Quiet Quitting.
So before we dive into quiet quitting, it's the beginning of a new season. How are you feeling, Rosanna?
Feeling good. Took a whole week off, and here we are recording again.
Yeah. So Season 8, our seasons haven't typically had themes to them, but we are excited about some of the content that's coming up in this particular season. We're looking forward to, we're both going to be turning 40 shortly, so we're going to address that elephant in the room.
Address it as much as we can.
And we're going to hit on, we hope, are a few topics that we haven't directly discussed yet on the show. And we'll see the return of a few interviews from some folks we're excited to learn from as well.
Yeah. But before we go any further, before we start a new season, before we work towards our 100th episode.
Our episode. Yeah.
Press pause now. And if you haven't already, go ahead and leave a review for us, because that's how people find us. And then go ahead and share this episode today if you find it useful.
That's right. If you already left a review, we're grateful for that. And yeah, share the Relentless Pursuit. Share any conversations that you've listened to that you found beneficial. And we hope this one is one more that you enjoy. So at the beginning of every season, we kind of want to define or redefine really what we are working towards on the Relentless Pursuit podcast. So really every episode is really an open opportunity for the two of us to sit down and really talk through and record the conversation of something that is interesting and meaningful to the two of us and towards what we believe is living an intentional life. And you'll kind of hear some of our unscripted dialogue just as a couple about how we broach those topics, how we help one another understand them. And as always, we hope that every podcast episode is what we call half a conversation. By the end of the episode, the other half of the conversation is completed by you and your loved ones as you continue to explore the same topic on your own.
Yep. And so if you haven't listened before, Jordan and I are married, have been married for 16 years. We work in different industries and have different thoughts and opinions and have very different personalities. So you're getting a little bit of a taste of two different people and kind of their take. And so hopefully you can kind of take this conversation to those people in your life that you like to discuss those things with.
So we hope that we did our show justice in describing it. But we're really passionate about just continually having and leaning on one another to have really effective dialogues to help us understand and live life better. And I think you can do that on your own, but we genuinely believe in the fact that when you do that alongside the person or the people who you love, then it's amplified that much further.
All right.
All right, so we're going to kick off this season with a trendy topic called quiet quitting. And so I don't want to step out of my lane here, because I think, Rosanna, it's your job to deliver the background
sure is.
And definitions on this show.
You are correct. So do not steal my thunder here. So if you haven't heard the buzz or the word quiet quitting, just do a quick Google search or look it up on a podcast, and you'll see that people are talking about this everywhere. It's this burnout phenomenon known as quiet quitting that was made popular by a TikTok user in July of 2022. And now I'm seeing this kind of trickle down, and I'm seeing articles from basically every kind of magazine and news source.
Everyone's been forced to address it because it has become just common parlance.
So let's talk about what it is. Quiet quitting refers to not overworking yourself or doing extra things that you won't get compensated for. You're not an underachiever, but also not an overachiever. It's doing the tasks involved with your assigned role, no more, no less. Simply put, it's doing your job without your job taking over your entire life.
So it's not quitting. It's not actually quitting. It's a bit of a misnomer.
Fact. No one is actually quitting.
Well, there's
still, and if they are, it's not necessarily, because of quiet quitting. It's maybe something altogether.
Yeah. There's been a lot of quitting going on. We just went through what people call it the Great Resignation, which is a lot of people quitting their jobs, but then finding new ones. So it's different than that.
Well, and this quiet quitting movement comes at a time when people have kind of realize that they've been subscribing to hustle culture and work-life imbalances. And it's kind of all come to a head. And some people will say, because of coming out of the pandemic, but just kind of this high rate of worker burnout.
Okay. So, yeah, in my reading about it, it's interesting because it is a trend. And as we already said, like the word is a bit of a misnomer because like quitting implies like you like stop working. And like the work is still going on, but the nature of your relationship to work is really what's changing. So you're not quitting your job, but you're quitting almost like a belief that you had about your job or a belief that you had about yourself in relation to how you earned money. Is that more accurate?
Yeah. Like by quiet quitting, you're still performing your basic duties and you're still working, but you're no longer subscribing to hustle culture. It's the notion that work does not have to be your life. And that's what work is supposed to be. It's supposed to be work. It's supposed to be your job. You clock in and you do what you're supposed to do. You meet all of your expectations. You hit all of your goals, right? So you're doing your job. You're just not letting it define you, and you're not letting it be the only thing in your life.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely. Well, first of all, I saw the TikToker that you referenced, and every article that I read referenced TikTok, but a different TikToker who kicked off the trend. So I don't know if we can pinpoint where the term exactly came from.
I'm sure
but
you can do a
it's
deep
one of those
dive and
TikTok
find it.
trends, and yeah, but it has like it's interesting because this term has risen to prominence, and it's a great alliteration, and maybe it's just catchy enough to like catch our ear, but it kind of strikes a chord too, where it's like, okay, you can't really quantify this, but you can recognize that in culture there is a shift in how we think about ourselves in relation to work, and it's kind of captured by this phrase here.
Well, and then so when I was kind of looking at quiet quitting, I think we're going to talk about a couple things in addition to quiet quitting. So obviously there's this kind of trend. This is what people are talking about. People are writing articles and responses to it. But, there's an article from the New York Times business section in January 2019 titled, "Why Are Young People Pretending to Love to Work?" And then subheadline is, "I saw the greatest minds of my generation log 18-hour days and then boast about #hustle on Instagram. When did performative workaholism become a lifestyle?" And so I think that's kind of
Such a loaded phrase.
I mean, that's quite the subheadline. But if you think about it, right, like our generation was told if you only work hard enough, right, you can have the keys to the kingdom, basically. And so I think that this is like the underlying question is, at what point did we start subscribing to this mentality that most people work 8 to 10-hour days, but we're going to work 18 and we're going to burn ourselves out and we're going to kill ourselves for our companies, for our bosses, for our teams. And then what do we get for it?
Well, it's the keys to what kingdom. But I like that headline because it's not just workaholism, but it's performative, which means like there's an aspect of it that is done for the sake of other people perceiving us doing it. And I see this a lot with students where they like brag about and legit brag about who stayed up the latest doing homework.
Who read the most pages?
No, it's more like
who wrote the longest
I had so
essay?
much homework.
How
I had
many words were in it?
No, it's like I had so much homework. I had to stay up until 2. Like you stayed up till 2. I was up till 3. And I'm like, you should be bragging about how early you finished everything and still got like a full night's sleep.
Well, so then let's touch on this then, this notion of hustle culture, which teaches us that there's always more money to make, a bigger title, a promotion, a higher waltz to climb, right? Like that there's this badge if we do more, right? And if you think about it, that is a culture that we had subscribed to for quite a while when we started our careers.
Well, yeah, and especially when you're young, like I feel like there's probably more cause to work. There's more cause to hustle because you're just starting your career. You want to prove yourself, and you really like. Hopefully, you're entering a career that you're interested in. It's not just a job to pay bills, but something where you can really like see a future for yourself in. And so, I'd imagine when you're younger, then that becomes much more the temptation. Let me allow this to take over a much bigger portion of my life. But then as your life takes on additional dimensions, I would say namely family, but not only, then it's harder to, things feel a little bit more out of balance, where instead of just being the kind of person where like, how can I become really adept at this profession and climb the ladder or make a certain dollar amount, now you start asking yourself other questions as you get older. And I feel like those are, so I don't fault anyone who's like young and, they don't have
Hungry.
other obligations. Yeah. And I don't fault anyone who's older and also like is subscribing to that if that's what fulfills them. And this is really like where they see themselves going to. But it's when you take a look at what you really want or what you really have out of life at a certain point, does your reality match your vision?
Well, I like that you said that your life takes on different dimensions because, we go to school, we grow up, right? We get into a good college. We go to college to earn a degree, right? To pursue some sort of career. And really at that time, you're a young 20-something, and most people do not have, besides like the family that they were raised in, do not have their own family that they're like supporting or caring about or anything like that. And so you're pretty independent and autonomous. So, right, like at that age, your identity does become your job, right? Like because you went to college and like this is now you're no longer like son, brother, friend, sister. You're now teacher, doctor, like whatever it is, right? So then that kind of becomes who you are. And now that we entered the workforce like 2005, and now it's 2022. Who we are now is very different than who we are when we started in the workforce.
Maybe. I would still say that
we've taken on other dimensions to who we are.
I would still say in a society like ours, a lot of the way we understand ourselves and one another is through our work. And like a common question when you're just meeting someone, after you're done talking about the weather, is like, so what do you do? Right? And why is that? That wasn't always the question, but that's an easy gateway into learning a lot more about someone and seeing to what degree they align with other cultural values. Historically, the question was not what do you do? The question was
where are you from?
Where are you from?
Okay.
Right? Because that mattered a lot more when society was far more like hierarchical, and where you were from or who your family was mattered a lot more. Now there's a lot more fluidity in the social and economic hierarchy. But that's why, I would say, like in a capitalist society, you get much more value out of like how you identify, and that's like the easiest way to do that is by your job. And there are other ways to stake your identity too. So like as we talk about this, is quiet quitting really like culture at this point, and especially maybe there's certain age demographics that this appeals to more, but is it like just taking a step back and saying like, whoa, wait a minute, it's like I don't want my life any longer to revolve only around this job or this career. I want to do justice to the other aspects of my life that I can't clock in or clock out for.
Well, and so the point that I was making is when you said like then later your life takes on more dimension. So like, right, you'll subscribe to that hustle culture because like that's really like the one thing that you have when you're younger, right? This new job, this new role. So you're kind of all in, you buy in, you're looking to climb that ladder, you're looking to get promoted, right? And then as your life changes and your priorities shift, right, you realize that that's not all there is. But I think part of it is with hustle culture is the idea of burnout, which is a reaction to prolonged or chronic job stress, right? If you're constantly working 18-hour days and 60 or 80-hour weeks, right? And you're on a salary where it's not a sales job where like the more you sell, the more you make, or a blue collar job where if you work over your whatever allotment of hours, you get paid overtime, you're killing yourself for what purpose? So I think it's now this realization where some people have been working for 5, 10, 15 years and are like, I can't continue this pace. Mm-hmm. I'm older, I'm tired, the stress is eating me alive, and I need a break, which makes me think, when I think of quiet quitting, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to do my job. So then I thought, all right, I'm just going to do my job. Let's go to the definition of work, shall we? Like, just pile it on.
A bonus definition, people. Listen close.
Activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. A task to be undertaking, something a person or thing has to do. To be engaged in physical or mental activity in order to achieve a result. To do work. So it's not that this quiet quitting is like people are just showing up to their job and putting their feet on their desk and like giving everybody the middle finger. It's not that at all.
So,
They're going there to
not like
perform their
office,
job.
like Office Space.
Correct. Like we're still showing up on time. We're still doing our roles as like dictated, but we're not going to like go crazy about it. We're not going to we're still going to meet all of the parameters. So I think that that's like this conversation like has to do with burnout, has to do with hustle culture. And it's kind of this realignment of what work really is. Like that we have been overworking and it's causing a shift in like what we value now as Americans and what's important.
I have a couple of thoughts on that. So one outcome of that would be like, almost this mental negotiation where it's like, okay, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do it well, but I'm not going to kill myself over it. The result of that might be that I may not get the promotion and I may not get the raise, but like we're also okay with that. Is that a piece of that too? Where, like to do justice to all areas of my life, I'm not going to like put so much time and stock into this one, even if that comes at the cost of future opportunities.
Well, sure. If your long-term goal isn't to be president of the company, because more money means more problems, right? Like if that's not what you're reaching for, then what are you killing yourself over, right? Like you can be in middle management and make a fine living and support your family. And then you can also go home and, coach Little League for your son or be there for your daughter's dance recital. So it's like, yeah, what is important to you?
So I hope to remember all these thoughts that I just had as you were talking. So one thing that strikes me is over the last 15, maybe the last 20 years, the amount of technology, the amount of portable technology that we have, especially like often provided by our work, really expands the workday. So much of our work is now facilitated digitally. And because we can do that on a laptop or on a phone, and we can carry that with us anywhere, now we can really, in theory, depending on our specific job, we can really work anywhere. And I think that that's really changed the nature of relationship to work, because even if we're not working on a given evening, we have colleagues who are, or an industry that is, and there's a compelling feature to kind of always be on. We can check our email, we can complete projects or create things for the next day or whatever our task happens to be. We can do it on weekends, we can do it on vacations.
You can do it while standing in the kitchen talking to your family over breakfast.
Right. Or even when you are at your child's like dance recital or Little League game, like you can also be working there too. And so I think because that opportunity has expanded itself, then that has created a degree of expectation that because I can work from anywhere at any time, then I will.
I should.
And if I do that, then I'm hustling, then I'm going to outpace, other businesses or other competitors, or outpace even like people in my own company and stand out. And, it's different than being able to like leave a place of work and then come home where you can't work. Now, like once that barrier has been crossed where work can come home with you, that really makes a difference with, I think, just how we think about it and what we expect from ourselves and from one another.
Well, and there's such a gray area between work and home. Work used to be work and home used to be home, right? Even a teacher in the olden days would still bring home work, papers to grade, or a businessman would bring home papers in his briefcase. But right, it's limited to what you can carry home or what you can do. But it's so accessible. It's so portable. There's always work to be done. And unless you have a manager or the president of a company like showing you that work is at work and home is at home, right? Then everything kind of bleeds into each other. So why are we exhausted? Why are we overworked? Why are we quiet quitting? Because no one has shown us how to leave work at work and put it away and be home to play.
Right. It's been like a 20-year experiment, and now we kind of have this trend, especially like so many things like COVID has kind of accelerated our reaction to certain things and helped us. We even talked about this like during COVID, like gives us a chance to rethink what we want normal to look like. And so we see this cultural trend towards like, well, I wonder if my normal can be reconsidered so that things are a little bit more in balance. And even though I like my job and I want to do well at it, I can still achieve that and allow space for other things in my life.
Well, I'm working on that currently. Okay, we've finally, the kids are, so what is this? We're at the end of September here. All of the kids are finally back in school. Preschool starts the latest after Labor Day. The other kids were home before. You went back to work a couple weeks before our kids did. Everybody is finally out of the house, and it's quiet and I can work. It's been great. But even I am like, as a small business owner, I'm like, listen, I'm doing this because I want some balance in my life. Like, I want to call the shots. Like, I want to be able to like enjoy my family, like get things done for my family, run my business, be successful. But like, if I can't have like built-in time during the week to like meet a friend for lunch or spend some time with my mom, like I think I'm doing it wrong. Like I finally realized that even I have to set like boundaries within my work schedule and like my work-life balance. Like, why do I need to work every single hour that the kids are gone, feeling like I can't get in a workout or I can't take the dog for a walk because I have to be productive for all 9 hours? Mm-hmm. And so really it's like this kind of what did you call it? The great recalibration?
Yeah, and I was going to bring up this term because I read an article from, I think it was from NPR, and it was talking about quiet quitting, and it gave a lot of interesting insights into the conversation. But then it ended the article with at least like a dozen better words that people are using to describe it. My favorite, which is not on that list, but I would use to describe my own understanding of it, is recalibration. Where you take a look at all those levers in your life. Which ones do you have full? Which ones are unactivated? And how do you want to? How would the vision of how you want those balanced really go? And how do you make that match the reality?
Well, which kind of brings up the next question is like, is quiet quitting a threat to employers? Like employers with concerns over quiet quitting should ask themselves, is the work we pay for getting done? Do we have relevant quantifiable measures to judge the quality of the work? And just because we're working differently or have a different attitude towards work doesn't mean we're working any less.
Well, it can feel threatening, especially I was reading a quote from Kevin O'Leary,
from Shark Tank.
Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank.
Mr. Wonderful.
But he's like, my employees, like, we do not have a culture of closing our laptops at 5. He's like, and if people do, I hope they work for my competitors. So, right. So there's that culture of like, we work harder, we work better than everyone else.
Longer. Sure.
Right. And the reality is, and I don't know if this has been measured, but the reality is that a company like that might outpace competitors, right? You might get more productivity from your employees. And like as a company owner, I definitely would want my employees like working the hardest and working the smartest and working the best. But is that the outcome is that
sustainable
that your employees want? Is that really building is that building the world in the way that we want it to? So there's just as much as employees are talking and reading about this, managers and owners are as well, because it really forces them to consider, like, what am I expecting of them? What kind of culture am I creating? Is it one where we can uphold a standard of expectation and excellence, but at the same time, like, be human? Or do I expect people to, get a salary and then I own their time?
Yeah. Well, and it just makes me wonder too, like, is the 40-hour work week outdated?
Oh, gee. Well, now you're really going.
Well, that's my question. Like, if we have all this technology, right, that's supposed to make everything faster and more efficient, right, that we can work less with the same results, like, should people have say over, like, as we talk about people like working from home? And, like when you work from home, are you really clocking in as many hours? Or is the job that you now have, like, if you can get it done in 5 hours a day and you're at home, can you use the other 3 to do what you want? Right? That you're constantly checking in. Well, no emails have come in. No tickets have come in. I don't have to fill this order. I don't have to do these things. Like, what does that look like? Are we beyond the 40-hour work week?
Well, another thing that crossed my, first of all, I'll quote from The Office. This reminds me of Michael Scott when he's like making fun of Jim. He's like, man, I think Jim's kind of lazy. It takes him 15 minutes to do something that would take me all day to do. And you laugh because you're not sure like what the task is, so you don't know like
If one is not doing
which,
it well, or
which
the
one
other
is
one
right.
is an
Yeah.
idiot. Yeah.
But I think of, and we talked about this a little bit too. Not that I know much about European culture, but we do know that like it's a very American thing to like identify ourselves as like hard workers.
The rat race.
But compared to European culture, where someone might like take the month of August off, it's like, wow, that's really good for you. What do you do at that time, right? Or even when we're growing up, you learn about it's like, oh, in Spain they take a siesta when it gets. I don't know if that's true, but kind of like a different outlook on life and a different pace. But then you look at the status of their economies, and like you have like Italy and Portugal and Greece, and like they're really not doing that great. And this was even years ago. So, there's something to be said about
But they
you,
live
you get
long-
what you work for.
But they also live longer and they seem a whole hell of a lot happier. So,
Right.
it's that mentality there where they like work to live, not live to work. Right? Like everything here is defined by like us growing up, going to college, getting a job and climbing the ladder. Like we live to work, So
Right.
do they have it right or do we?
All right, well, I have another question for you, and that is, so like a younger person, someone early on in their career, in their mid-20s, let's say, if they're already thinking along these lines, would you describe them as wise or lazy?
I think that's a great question. I think it would depend on the individual and what they've achieved.
Oh, the old
If
"it
they
depends"
work
response.
if they, are working, retail somewhere, 8 hours a week and are like, it's a rat race, man. Like, I don't want to be a manager. Like, maybe they're lazy.
They're also a hippie.
But it's like,
Man. You mean working for the man?
but I think I don't think there's anything wrong with working. I don't think there's anything wrong with achieving. I think those are two great qualities. I think those are things that everybody should strive for. But I think it's just what are your goals and what are your values and what contributions are you making to the world or to a bigger picture? Like, is it just for money, or is it because like there is some value and there is some gain and it helps other people, and I think there are different layers to that.
I mean, so that's what I wonder. And then I wonder, is this pertinent to like different people at different stages of life? Because I think one myth is that, and we've kind of already fallen into this, but that's like when you're young and you don't have a family, then, well, you really have no excuse. You should be working hard, as though other aspects of their life, like their health or their friendships, really
aren't important.
like don't matter,
Which I've seen. Like, I've heard my brother, who is a couple years older than me, not married, no kids, always gets stuck working some like, they had floating holidays and who worked what holidays. They're like, well, you don't have a family. He goes, just because I don't have kids doesn't mean I have a family. I have parents, I have siblings, I have nieces and nephews. So why should I miss Christmas because I don't have a family? Like, I have family, like, not treating people equal, like based on, the kind of family that they have is also not, not right either.
Yeah. So, again, like if I were to call it not quite quitting, but like recalibration, like I feel like this is something anyone can really benefit from. And I think culture now is giving itself some honest answers of like, well, like time out. Maybe I don't want as much money or as much responsibility or stature as I originally thought I did, or I was told I could have, because other stuff that's immediately accessible to me, I should probably be taking advantage of in the first place.
Right. At what cost? And so, I remember this conversation too with like, my mom before she retired, like in her late 50s, early 60s, talking about like young people coming in, like, oh, my boss, he's your age, like in his late 20s, early 30s. And it's like, yeah, you think you're going to work harder, faster, better. Guess what? At the end of the day, we all end up at the same spot. It's like this, it's like education plus experience equals a little bit of wisdom. And so there are things that when we're in our early 20s and we're starting our careers that we don't know because we haven't been working for 30 years. Like, working like that for that long is going to cause a burnout, right? Or that it's going to cost you something in your personal life by trying to skip steps and race up the ladder. And so I think for us, we've kind of talked about this in, where we're headed, our generation, as millennials and kind of where we're at. Like this is kind of that point, right? We've already mentioned that we're turning 40 this year. It's like, all right, we've been working for almost 20 years.
Well,
what have we learned? What do we need to rethink?
Yeah, it's like let's not work harder, but let's work smarter. And I feel like my own relationship to my job has changed a little bit. Like still all the same things we've been saying, like I still work hard and I still am committed to doing an exceptional job. But I also take a lunch break now.
It only took 18 years, ladies and gentlemen, but my husband is finally taking a lunch break.
Frankly, it feels sinful. I'm like, are people judging me because I just took, and it's not even like an hour. I take like 20, maybe 25 minutes to eat my leftovers and I don't know, like flick on my phone like that, or like go talk to somebody, or I even like stepped out of the building. And these are things that are unheard of for the majority of my career. And like now I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I shouldn't really feel guilty about that. This is like a perfectly ordinary thing to do for most other people.
You're a union employee. You're
Right.
allowed a lunch break.
But it feels like, I've been committed to like working hard and fast for so long. Now doing something perfectly reasonable, like not working for 25 minutes in the middle of the day it feels different.
The image just came to mind is like you've driven your car over like the speed limit your entire life, right? And now you're actually going the speed limit and you're like, what the hell am I doing? I feel like I'm going backwards.
What was I in such a rush for? Yeah.
Like I'm still going to get
like
there.
You're driving on the highway and then you finally get off after like 12 hours on the highway, and then the side streets feel like you're just crawling at 40 miles an hour.
Yep, right. But you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I recently finished a book. I think it's called The Power. It's right here. The Power of One More. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right over my shoulder on our bookshelf. And it's
author of that is
Ed Moylett, who, if you haven't heard of Ed Moylett, you should. He's got his own podcast. He's accomplished a lot with his life. And this book, like some of his other work, I think it's inspiring in the sense that like he just kind of teaches you how to think. I would say like Tony Robbins-esque in the way that he works and motivates people. So it was a fantastic book, The Power of One More. But there's only one chapter that I didn't feel like it hit, and that was the time management chapter. Because I was really like expecting, like I got so much out of this book. You'll hear me mention it multiple times this season, but in that chapter, it felt more like here's how to hustle. Here's how to think about time in a way to maximize it.
I was going to say how to do more, right?
Yeah. And I was hoping for, because other aspects of the book do kind of speak to this, but I was hoping for like, here's how to make good use of your time, but also like within reason, within balance.
Without getting up at 4 a.m. and going to bed at midnight.
Right. And it kind of, I felt like that chapter had, without going into too much detail, it had like a few mixed messages to it, because he does talk about the importance of routines. But then he lists like a million things that you could do with a given morning, all within like a 20-minute time frame, so that you can like, hurry up and get to work. And when other people see how hard you work, they start to respect you more. And it just felt like that message was out of sync with at least what I was looking for, and I would even say with some of the other components of his book. But so that's what I'm looking for, and that's why I was excited to have this conversation, was to like let's work hard. Let's still be, however we want to describe it, American, or still be like driven to grow and to
succeed,
produce,
to achieve, sure.
But let's be reasonable with it as well, and make sure that we do justice to all the other areas of our lives, namely ourselves, but also like not just how do I define myself as an employee or as a careerist, but how do I define myself as all the other things that we talk about on the show, as a husband and as a father and as a hobbyist and as someone who's focused on health and spirituality or whatever else we find significant to us.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is the start of a great conversation. We kind of started with quiet quitting, but we're talking about burnout and hustle culture and what is work and how much should it define us, and the role of technology and not being able to log off, and the blurred lines between home and work, and who we are and who we say we want to be. And so, our hope, obviously, is that we can inspire you to kind of start having this conversation with someone else in your life and kind of see where you're at and what's important to you.
Yeah, so I think we'll officially call that, if no one's called it this yet, we will officially call it the Great Recalibration.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right.
Hashtag it, share it,
Right.
Tell your people.
That's right. And I think that's a better discussion than just quiet quitting to engage with. And, if you haven't listened to the end of season 7, we started broaching a few different angles on a similar topic of just how we define ourselves generationally and how we define what we truly find value in, even if it doesn't have a dollar amount to it. So we encourage you to check out some of those episodes from the end of season 7. And this sets us up for some of the things that we're going to be exploring a little further down the road in season 8.
Yeah, I think the biggest question would be, how do we set boundaries and have a healthy relationship with our work going forward so that we can pursue all of the things that are important to us?
All right. So a lot more fun to come in season 8. I'm excited about, talking through some of the upcoming episodes with you.
Yeah, next up on our list, you want to share it with them?
I'm a little nervous to share this because we've avoided this topic for so long, and you'll hear us tell you more about it.
No, let's not tell them now. Let's keep them engaged. Let's see if they tune in back next week.
All right, well, when you hear the actual topic, you're going to be like, really? That's what you've been avoiding? But yeah, hear us out.
Oh, you know what? I'll give it the title. Then they can be guessing. It's called The Other F Word.
It's a questionable title. It's a work in progress.
Work in progress. I guess you'll see next week.
All right. Well, as we said at the beginning of the show, a couple things. First, we hope this is half of a conversation. So take the topic of quiet quitting and bring it to the people around you, whether at work or in your personal life, and just see what other people are saying about it. Also, tell them that at least Rosanna and I recommend the Great Recalibration and see how that goes over. But also, equally importantly, leave a review, leave a 5-star rating, and share this episode with a friend if you found it valuable.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Toodles, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. We hope you will use this conversation as a starting point for your own. We hope you're encouraged to think and act more intentionally.
If you want to learn more, you can visit our website, therelentlesspursuitpodcast.com, where you can find notes on today's show, plus additional blog posts, and you can subscribe to our free members list.
Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends.
Facebook and Instagram are 2 great places to connect with us for daily doses of our quotable quotes, behind the scenes, and real-time photos, videos, and challenges.
Until next time, let us know how you are taking life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursuing what matters.